Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked through his microscope. The small green plant from another planet looked strange under the bright lab lights. He had been working at the Earth Research Center for 3 years now, but alien plants still amazed him every day. The lab was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Jake liked working alone in the evening when most other scientists had gone home. He could focus better without people talking around him. Suddenly, loud alarms started ringing throughout the building. Red lights flashed on the walls. Jake jumped up from his chair and looked around in confusion. He had never heard these alarms before. "All staff report to the main hall immediately," a voice said over the speakers. "This is not a drill. All staff report to the main hall now." Jake ran down the long white hallways with other scientists and workers. Everyone looked scared and confused. When he reached the main hall, he saw Director Helen Carter standing on a small stage. Her face was very serious. "Everyone please stay calm," Helen said into a microphone. "We have visitors from space. They are coming down to our building right now." The large windows in the hall showed the sky outside. Jake could see a huge black spaceship coming down from the clouds. It was bigger than any building he had ever seen. The ship was completely black and had strange symbols glowing on its sides. "Who are they?" someone shouted from the crowd. "We don't know yet," Helen replied. "Security Chief Ben Rodriguez is trying to contact them, but they are not answering our calls." The black ship landed in the big field next to the research center. The ground shook when it touched down. Jake could feel the vibration through his feet. Dust and dirt flew everywhere. Everyone in the hall watched through the windows as a door opened on the side of the ship. Bright white light came out of the opening. Then figures started walking out of the ship. Jake squinted his eyes to see better. The figures looked like people, but something was different about them. They were very tall and thin. Their skin was pale white, almost like snow. They wore long black clothes that looked expensive and fancy. One figure walked in front of the others. Even from far away, Jake could see this one was special. The person moved with grace and confidence. The other figures followed behind like guards or servants. "They're coming to the building," Ben Rodriguez said into his radio. "All security teams get ready, but do not attack unless I give the order." The group of aliens walked across the field toward the research center. As they got closer, Jake could see them more clearly. They looked mostly human, but their faces were different. Their eyes were larger and had strange colors. Their ears were slightly pointed at the tops. The leader of the group was clearly a woman. She had long silver hair that moved in the wind. Her skin was perfectly white and smooth. She wore a black dress that looked like something a queen would wear. Around her neck was a necklace with a red stone that glowed softly. "Open the main doors," Helen ordered. "Let them come inside. Everyone else stay calm and quiet." The aliens entered the building. Their footsteps echoed in the quiet halls. Jake noticed that the other aliens looked like soldiers. They carried strange weapons that glowed with blue light. When the group reached the main hall, everyone became completely silent. The alien woman looked around the room with her bright purple eyes. Jake had never seen eyes that color before. They seemed to glow in the light. The woman spoke in perfect English with a voice that sounded like music. "I am Princess Lyra Vexthara of the Valtherian Empire. I seek the one called Jake Morrison." Jake's heart stopped. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. He felt his face turn red with embarrassment and fear. How did this alien princess know his name? "That's me," Jake said in a shaky voice. "I'm Jake Morrison." Princess Lyra walked directly toward him. The crowd of people moved out of her way. Jake could smell something sweet and strange as she got closer. Her purple eyes stared right at him. When she reached him, she stopped just a few feet away. Jake could see that her teeth were different from human teeth. 2 of them were longer and sharper, like the fangs of a vampire in old movies. "Jake Morrison of Earth," the princess said in her musical voice. "By the ancient laws of the Valtherian blood pact, you are my destined mate. I claim you as my husband according to the promises made by your ancestors." The entire room gasped. Jake's mouth fell open in shock. He stared at the beautiful alien princess who had just declared him to be her husband. "I think there's been a mistake," Jake said, his voice cracking. "I've never heard of any blood pact. I don't even know what a Valtherian is." Princess Lyra smiled, showing her sharp white fangs. "There is no mistake, Jake Morrison. Your bloodline is bound to mine by laws older than your civilization. You will come with me to fulfill this sacred bond." "Now wait just a minute," Director Helen said, stepping forward. "You can't just take one of our people. This is Earth territory. The princess turned her glowing eyes toward Helen. Your government signed treaties to join our Galactic Federation. You agreed to honor all ancient laws and contracts. This blood pact was made long before your people reached the stars. One of the alien soldiers handed the princess a small crystal cube that glowed with inner light. She held it up for everyone to see. This contains the proof you require, she said. The genetic markers of Jake Morrison match exactly with those promised in the pact signed by Captain William Hayes in your year 1847. Jake shook his head in confusion. 1847? That's impossible. No humans left Earth in 1847. We didn't even have spaceships then. Your history books are incomplete, Jake Morrison, the princess replied. Some of your people traveled farther than you know, and one of them was your great-great-great-grandfather. Ben Rodriguez spoke into his radio quietly. Get President Chen on the line immediately. And call Admiral Sullivan. We have a situation here. Princess Lyra heard him and turned her attention back to Jake. You have 7 of your Earth days to accept this bond willingly. If you refuse, my empire will consider the pact broken. The punishment for breaking sacred laws is war. War, Jake repeated. You're threatening war over this? I do not make threats, the princess said seriously. I state facts. The Valtherian Empire has existed for 50,000 years. We do not break our word, and we do not allow others to break theirs. Jake looked around the room at all the frightened faces staring at him. These people were his friends and co-workers. Earth was his home, but this alien princess was saying his choice could start a war that might destroy everything. I need time to think about this, Jake said finally. Princess Lyra nodded slowly. You have 7 days. I will remain here to answer your questions and help you understand your destiny. But know this, Jake Morrison. The bond between us was written in the stars long before either of us was born. You cannot escape what was always meant to be. She turned and walked back toward the exit with her guards following. At the doorway, she stopped and looked back at Jake one more time. I will be waiting, she said, and then she was gone. Jake stood in the silent room, surrounded by confused and worried faces. His normal, quiet life as a scientist had just been turned completely upside down by a beautiful alien vampire princess who claimed to be his wife. And he had 6 days left to decide if he would save Earth or doom it. Jake could not sleep that night. He lay in his small apartment bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about purple eyes and sharp white fangs. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Princess Lyra's beautiful face and heard her musical voice saying he was her husband. The next morning, Jake arrived at the research center to find everything had changed. Military soldiers stood at every door. News reporters crowded outside the building, shouting questions at anyone who walked by. The parking lot was full of black cars with government license plates. Jake, Director Helen called out when she saw him. Thank goodness you're here. We have a lot to figure out. She led him to a conference room where several important-looking people sat around a long table. Jake recognized Dr. Lisa Park, the head of genetic research. The others were strangers in expensive suits. Sit down, Jake, Helen said. These people are from the government. They want to talk about what happened yesterday. A man with gray hair and a serious expression spoke first. Mr. Morrison, I'm Agent William Cooper from the Department of Alien Affairs. We need you to tell us everything you remember about your family history. My family history? Jake asked, confused. What does that have to do with anything? The alien princess mentioned Captain William Hayes, Agent Cooper said. She claimed he was your ancestor. We need to know if that's true. Jake thought for a moment. Hayes! Yes, that was my mother's family name before she married my father. But I don't know much about our old family history. Dr. Lisa Park leaned forward. Jake, we ran tests on that crystal cube the princess left behind. The genetic information inside is incredibly detailed. It shows a perfect match with your DNA going back many generations. But how is that possible? Jake asked. Humans didn't meet aliens until we joined the Galactic Federation 5 years ago. Agent Cooper opened a thick folder full of papers. That's what we thought too. But we've been researching all night. We found some very old records that most people have never seen. He pulled out an old yellow photograph. The picture showed a group of men in old-fashioned clothes, standing next to something that looked like a crashed spaceship. This picture was taken in 1847 in the mountains of Colorado, Agent Cooper explained. The man in the center is Captain William Hayes. The official report said his expedition team found a fallen star, but we now think it was an alien ship. Jake stared at the photograph. The man in the center had the same dark hair and brown eyes that Jake saw in the mirror every morning. The resemblance was unmistakable. According to these secret records, Agent Cooper continued, Captain Hayes made contact with the aliens. They were badly injured and their ship was broken. Hayes helped them repair it and get back to space. And in return they made some kind of agreement? Jake asked. Exactly. The records are not complete. But it seems Hayes promised that his family bloodline would serve as a bridge between humans and these aliens in the future. He probably never thought it would actually matter. Dr. Lisa Park showed Jake a computer screen full of complex genetic data. The crystal cube contains a complete genetic map going from Captain Hayes to you. Every generation is documented perfectly. There's no doubt. You are his direct descendant. Jake felt dizzy. His whole life he had thought he was just a normal person studying alien plants. Now he was learning that his family had been connected to aliens for over 200 years. What exactly is a Valtherian? Jake asked. Agent Cooper pulled out another file. We've been learning about them from our contacts in the Galactic Federation. The Valtherians are one of the oldest and most powerful races in the galaxy. They've had space travel for thousands of years. And the vampire thing? Jake asked nervously. They do need to drink blood to survive, Dr. Park said gently, but not like the monsters in old movies. They only need small amounts and they never hurt their partners. For them, sharing blood is like humans sharing a meal together. Partners? Jake repeated. Valtherian society is built around bonding, Agent Cooper explained. When two Valtherians form a bond, they share everything. Thoughts, emotions, even life force. It makes them incredibly close and loyal to each other. Jake rubbed his forehead, feeling overwhelmed. So this princess wants to bond with me because of something my great-great-great-grandfather did 200 years ago? It's more complicated than that, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Princess Lyra entering the room. She wore a simpler dress today, dark blue instead of black, but she still looked like royalty. Her silver hair was pulled back, showing the pointed tips of her ears. Your Highness, Agent Cooper said, standing up quickly. We didn't expect you. I told Jake Morrison I would answer his questions, Princess Lyra said, walking to an empty chair. I always keep my word. Jake noticed that her purple eyes looked tired. Did you sleep last night? He asked without thinking. Princess Lyra smiled slightly, showing just the tips of her fangs. Valtherians do not sleep the same way humans do. We meditate instead, but I spent the night thinking about you and your people. What did you think about? Jake asked. About how different we are, she replied, and about how that might make the bond between us stronger instead of weaker. Dr. Park leaned forward with interest. Can you tell us more about Valtherian bonding? We want to understand what would happen to Jake. Princess Lyra looked directly at Jake as she spoke. When two beings bond, they create a connection that allows them to share thoughts and feelings. They can sense each other's emotions and sometimes see each other's memories. It does not control the mind or take away free will. It simply makes two people closer than they could ever be alone. And the blood drinking? Jake asked quietly. Once bonded, I would need to drink a small amount of your blood once each week, Princess Lyra said simply. It would not hurt you or make you weak. In fact, the bond would make you stronger and healthier than normal humans. You would live much longer. How much longer? Jake asked. Valtherians live for thousands of years. A bonded human partner shares that lifespan. Jake's eyes widened. Thousands of years? The bond changes human biology, Princess Lyra explained. It stops aging and prevents most diseases, but only if both partners agree to it willingly. A forced bond does not work. Agent Cooper cleared his throat. Your Highness, what would happen if Jake refuses the bond? Princess Lyra's expression became sad. Then I would be exiled from my people forever, and the traditionalist faction in my empire would declare humans to be oath breakers. They would use that as an excuse to attack Earth. How many ships do they have? Agent Cooper asked seriously. Enough to destroy your entire planet in a single day, Princess Lyra replied quietly. The room became very quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. The choice was not just about his own life anymore. It was about the survival of everyone on Earth. Why me? Jake asked finally. Why not someone else from the Hayes family? Princess Lyra stood up and walked to the window. You are the last of the direct bloodline. All the other descendants have died or married into other families. The genetic markers only appear in the direct line. But there must be other ways to solve this, Jake said desperately. Can't our governments make a new agreement? The blood pact is sacred law. Princess Lyra said, turning back to face him. It cannot be changed or replaced. It can only be fulfilled or broken. Jake looked around the room at all the worried faces. These people were depending on him to make the right choice. But how could he choose between his own freedom and the safety of his entire planet? How much time do I have left? Jake asked. Princess Lyra checked a device on her wrist that glowed with soft blue light. 6 days and 14 hours. Can you tell me more about your people? About what my life would be like if I agreed to this? Princess Lyra nodded. I will tell you everything you wish to know, Jake Morrison. Because despite what you might think, I want you to choose freely. A bond made from fear is no bond at all. Jake took a deep breath. He had 6 days to learn about an alien princess, her vampire people, and a choice that would change his life forever. 6 days to decide if he could save Earth by becoming something he never imagined he could be. 6 days to decide if he could learn to love someone from another world. Over the next 3 days, Jake spent every waking hour learning about Princess Lyra and her people. She told him stories about the Valtherian Empire while they walked through the research center gardens. Jake found himself looking forward to these conversations more than he expected. My planet is called Valtheria Prime, Princess Lyra explained as they sat on a bench under a large oak tree. It has 3 moons and the sky is always purple like my eyes. The cities are built from black stone that glows softly in the dark. It sounds beautiful, Jake said honestly, but also very different from Earth. Different, yes, Princess Lyra agreed, but not better or worse, just different. That is what the bond teaches us, that 2 different things can become stronger together. Jake watched a butterfly land on a nearby flower. What would I do there? I'm just a scientist who studies plants. I don't know anything about being a prince or running an empire. Princess Lyra smiled. You would not run the empire. That is my responsibility, but you would help me understand how to make it better. Your people have ideas about fairness and freedom that my people need to learn. What do you mean? Jake asked. Princess Lyra's expression became serious. Valtherian society is very old and traditional. We have strict rules about bloodlines and social classes. Many of my people still believe that some beings are born better than others. But I've studied human culture and I think you have found better ways to live together. Jake was surprised. You studied humans? For many years, Princess Lyra nodded. When I learned about the blood pact and that I would need to bond with a human, I wanted to understand your species. I read your books, watched your movies, studied your history. That is how I learned to speak your language so well. What did you think of us? Jake asked curiously. Princess Lyra was quiet for a moment, thinking. At first I thought humans were weak because you are not as strong or as long-lived as Valtherians. But then I learned about your wars and how you survived them. I read about your scientists and artists and explorers. I realized that humans are not weak at all. You are adaptable and creative in ways that my people have forgotten how to be. Is that why you chose me specifically? Jake asked. Because of what you learned about humans. Partly, Princess Lyra admitted. The blood pact required me to bond with someone from the Hayes bloodline. But there were 3 possible candidates when I began my search. Jake's eyes widened. 3? What happened to the other 2? One was a criminal who had hurt many people. The other was a wealthy man who cared only about money and power. Neither would have been a good partner for someone trying to change an empire. So you picked me because I was the best choice? Jake asked. Princess Lyra turned to look directly at him. I picked you because when I read about your work and your life, I saw someone who cares about learning and helping others. Someone who treats all living things with respect. Someone who might understand that being powerful means using that power to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Jake felt his cheeks turn red. I'm not as good as you think I am. You are better than you think you are, Princess Lyra replied softly. That evening, Jake was in his apartment reading about Valtherian culture when his phone rang. It was Agent Cooper. Jake, we have a problem, Agent Cooper said urgently. Our satellites have detected more Valtherian ships approaching Earth. They'll be here tomorrow. Jake's heart sank. Is it an invasion? We don't know. Princess Lyra hasn't told us about any other ships coming. We need you to ask her what's happening. Jake found Princess Lyra in the conference room where she had been staying. She was looking at a small device that projected images of her home planet in the air above it. The images showed beautiful cities with tall spires and gardens filled with strange, colorful plants. Princess Lyra, Jake said quietly, Agent Cooper told me more of your ships are coming. Is that bad news? Princess Lyra's face immediately became worried. She touched the device and the images disappeared. How many ships? What do they look like? I don't know. Cooper just said our satellites detected them. Why, who could they be? Princess Lyra stood up quickly and began pacing around the room. It could be my father sending reinforcements to protect me. Or it could be Duke Vexmore coming to challenge the Blood Pact. Who is Duke Vexmore? Jake asked. He is the leader of the traditionalist faction in our empire, Princess Lyra explained. He believes that Valtherians should rule over all other species in the galaxy. He thinks bonding with a human makes me weak and our empire vulnerable. What would he do if he came here? Jake asked nervously. He would try to prove that humans are not worthy of bonding with Valtherians, Princess Lyra said. He might challenge you to combat or demand that you pass tests to prove your worth. Jake felt scared. I'm not a fighter. I wouldn't last 5 minutes against an alien warrior. Princess Lyra stopped pacing and came to stand in front of him. Duke Vexmore is not just strong in body. He is clever and cruel. But Jake, you have something he does not have, and what's that? Jake asked. You have a human mind, Princess Lyra said. Humans think differently than Valtherians. You find solutions that we would never consider. You adapt to new situations faster than any species in the galaxy. That is your greatest strength. The next morning, Jake was awakened by the sound of more alarms. He rushed to the research center to find everyone gathered in the main hall again, just like 3 days ago. But this time, there were 5 black ships landing in the field instead of 1. Princess Lyra stood beside Jake, her face tense with worry. The largest ship belongs to Duke Vexmore, she said quietly. He has come to challenge the Blood Pact. The ships landed and dozens of Valtherian soldiers marched out in perfect formation. They were bigger and more heavily armed than Princess Lyra's guards. In the center of the group walked a tall figure in elaborate red and black armor. Duke Vexmore was even more intimidating than Jake had imagined. He was nearly 7 feet tall with pale skin and bright red eyes. His fangs were longer than Princess Lyra's, and he carried a sword that glowed with dangerous energy. The Duke and his soldiers entered the research center and marched directly to the main hall. When Duke Vexmore saw Princess Lyra, he spoke in a voice like thunder. Princess Lyra Vexthera, by the ancient laws of challenge, I contest this blood pact. The human you have chosen is unworthy to bond with Valtherian royalty. Princess Lyra stepped forward bravely. Duke Vexmore, the blood pact is sacred law. You cannot simply declare it invalid because you disagree with it. I can if the human cannot prove his worth, the Duke replied with a cruel smile. I invoke the right of testing. Let this Jake Morrison prove he deserves to bond with a princess of our people. Jake felt like his legs might give out. What kind of tests? He asked in a shaky voice. Duke Vexmore looked down at Jake like he was examining an insect. 3 tests, human. First, a test of courage to see if you will protect what matters. Second, a test of wisdom to see if you can solve problems that have no easy answers. Third, a test of strength to see if you have the will to fight for what you believe. And if I fail? Jake asked. If you fail any test, the blood pact becomes void, Duke Vexmore said. Princess Lyra will be declared unfit for bonding and exiled from our empire. And your Earth will be marked as a planet of oath-breakers. Jake looked at Princess Lyra. Her purple eyes were full of worry, but also hope. She believed in him even when he did not believe in himself. When did the test begin? Jake asked. Duke Vexmore smiled, showing all his sharp teeth. Now. He gestured to his soldiers, who brought forward a large metal cage. Inside the cage was a small creature that looked like a cross between a cat and a bird. It had soft fur and tiny wings, and it was clearly terrified. This is a moonbeast from Valtheria Prime, Duke Vexmore explained. They are gentle creatures that harm no one. For your first test, you must choose. Save this innocent creature's life or save your own. One of the Duke's soldiers raised a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. He pointed it at the cage, but the angle was wrong. If he fired, the energy blast would kill the small creature and then continue on to hit Jake. You have 10 seconds to decide, human, Duke Vexmore said coldly. Save yourself and let the creature die, or sacrifice yourself to save an innocent life. Jake looked at the frightened little animal in the cage. Its big eyes reminded him of his cat when he was a child. He thought about Princess Lyra and everyone on Earth who was counting on him. Then Jake did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He smiled. I choose option 3, Jake said calmly. There is no option 3, Duke Vexmore growled. Sure there is, Jake replied, walking toward the soldier with the weapon. I'm a scientist. We always look for the third option. Before anyone could stop him, Jake grabbed the weapon from the surprised soldier and quickly adjusted its settings. Then he fired it at the lock on the cage instead of at the creature or himself. The cage door burst open and the small moon beast flew out, circling around Jake's head gratefully before landing on his shoulder. Duke Vexamore stared at Jake in shock. That was not the test. No, Jake agreed, gently petting the little creature. That was a human solution to a Valtherian problem. And I think Princess Lyra is right. Sometimes being different is exactly what makes us stronger. Princess Lyra was smiling proudly, but Duke Vexmore looked angry. Duke Vexmore was clearly angry that Jake had solved the first test so easily. The little moonbeast still sat on Jake's shoulder, purring softly like a tiny cat. Jake could feel its warm body shaking against his neck, and he gently stroked its fur to calm it down. The second test begins now, Duke Vexmore announced. His soldiers brought forward a large table with what looked like a three-dimensional puzzle made of glowing crystal pieces. This is the puzzle of eternal conflict, the Duke explained. For 1,000 years, 2 Valtherian clans have been fighting over territory on the moon of Xeris. Both clans have valid claims to the land. Both have suffered losses in the war. You must find a solution that both sides will accept, or admit that some problems cannot be solved. Jake walked around the table, studying the crystal pieces. Each piece seemed to represent different parts of the moon's surface. Some pieces glowed red, others blue, showing the territories claimed by each clan. What exactly are they fighting about? Jake asked. Duke Vexmore seemed surprised by the question. The land, of course. Both clans need it to survive, but why do they need it? Jake pressed. What's on this land that's so important? Princess Lyra stepped forward. The moon has 2 resources, she explained. Crystal mines that provide energy for their ships and fertile valleys where they can grow food. Each clan controls some of each, but not enough to thrive. Jake studied the puzzle more carefully. He could see the problem now. The 2 clans had divided the moon in a way that gave each side some of what they needed, but not enough. They were fighting over pieces instead of looking at the whole picture. Have they ever tried working together? Jake asked. Duke Vexmore laughed coldly. Valtherians do not share power, human. Each clan must be independent and strong. But what if being independent is actually making them weaker? Jake said, moving some of the crystal pieces around. Look at this. Clan A has more mines but fewer farms. Clan B has more farms but fewer mines. They're fighting over each other's resources instead of trading. Trading is a sign of weakness, Duke Vexmore said firmly. It makes you dependent on others. Jake looked up from the puzzle. On Earth, we've learned that cooperation makes everyone stronger. What if these clans formed an alliance instead of fighting? They could specialize in what they do best and trade with each other. And if one clan betrays the other? Duke Vexmore asked. Jake moved more pieces on the table, creating a new pattern. Then you make the alliance so beneficial that betrayal would hurt the betrayer more than anyone else. Look, if Clan A focuses on mining and Clan B focuses on farming, and they build their infrastructure together, then neither clan can survive without the other. They become stronger together than they ever could apart. Princess Lyra studied Jake's new arrangement of the crystal pieces. It's brilliant, she said softly. Instead of dividing the moon's resources, they would multiply them through cooperation. Duke Vexmore stared at the puzzle for a long moment. This solution requires changing 1,000 years of tradition. Sometimes traditions need to change if they're not working anymore, Jake said. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're smart enough to find a better way. The Duke's red eyes flashed with anger, but he could not argue with Jake's logic. You have passed the second test, human. But now comes the real challenge. Duke Vexmore drew his glowing sword and pointed it at Jake. The third test is combat. You must face me in single battle to prove you have the strength to protect a Valtherian princess. Jake's heart sank. This was what he had been dreading. Duke Vexmore was a trained warrior who had probably been fighting for centuries. Jake was just a scientist who had never been in a real fight in his life. I can't fight you, Jake said honestly. You would kill me in seconds. Then you admit defeat? Duke Vexmore asked with a cruel smile. No, Jake replied, surprising everyone, including himself. I'm saying the test is unfair. Duke Vexmore's eyes narrowed dangerously. You dare question the ancient laws? I question tests that have nothing to do with what they're supposed to measure, Jake said, his confidence growing. You want to know if I'm strong enough to protect Princess Lyra? Fighting you with swords doesn't prove that. Then what would prove it? Duke Vexmore demanded. Jake looked around the room at all the people watching. Real strength isn't about being able to kill your enemies. Real strength is about being willing to sacrifice for the people you care about. It's about standing up for what's right even when you're scared. It's about finding ways to solve problems without violence. Pretty words, Duke Vexmore said dismissively. But words do not stop bullets or energy blasts. Maybe not, Jake agreed. But they can stop wars before they start. They can turn enemies into allies. They can build futures where fighting isn't necessary. Princess Lyra stepped forward. Duke Vexmore, Jake has already shown his strength. He saved an innocent creature when he could have saved himself. He solved a problem that had stumped our people for 1,000 years. What more proof do you need? I need proof that he can protect you when soldiers come with weapons, Duke Vexmore replied. Words will not stop an assassin's blade. Jake took a deep breath. He knew what he had to do, even though it terrified him. You're right, Jake said. So let's make this test realistic. Instead of fighting me to see if I can protect Princess Lyra, try to attack her. If I can stop you, then I pass your test. Everyone in the room gasped. Duke Vexmore was one of the deadliest warriors in the Valtharian Empire. Asking him to attack Princess Lyra was incredibly dangerous. Jake, no, Princess Lyra said quickly. It's too risky. I accept, Duke Vexmore said with a vicious grin. But know this, human, I will not hold back. If you cannot stop me, she will be hurt. Jake positioned himself between Duke Vexmore and Princess Lyra. He had no weapons, no armor, no training. All he had was his human brain and his determination to protect someone he was starting to care about. Duke Vexmore raised his sword and charged forward with inhuman speed. Jake knew he could not match the Duke's strength or speed, so he did not try to. Instead, he did something completely unexpected. As the Duke rushed toward them, Jake grabbed Princess Lyra's hand and pulled her to the side while shouting, "Fire in the building! Everyone evacuate now." The room erupted into chaos as people started running for the exits. In the confusion, Jake and Princess Lyra slipped away from Duke Vexmore and ran toward the emergency stairwell. Jake, what are you doing? Princess Lyra asked as they ran up the stairs. Using my brain instead of my muscles, Jake panted. A good protector doesn't stand and fight when he can avoid the fight altogether. They reached the roof of the building just as Duke Vexmore burst through the stairwell door behind them. But Jake had been counting on this. He pressed a button on his phone and suddenly the building's fire suppression system activated, shooting high-pressure water in all directions. Duke Vexmore was caught off guard by the blast of water and slipped on the wet roof. His sword flew out of his hand and skittered across the rooftop out of reach. Jake quickly moved to stand over the fallen Duke, holding a fire extinguisher like a weapon. I protected Princess Lyra without hurting you or anyone else, Jake said. Does that count as passing your test? Duke Vexmore lay on the wet roof staring up at Jake in amazement. For the first time since arriving on Earth, he looked genuinely impressed. You use the environment as your weapon, the Duke said slowly. You turned your weaknesses into strengths. You protected your objective while neutralizing the threat. He paused, then continued with what might have been respect in his voice. You think like a true strategist, not just a warrior. Jake helped Duke Vexmore to his feet. I think like a human. We learned a long time ago that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to avoid fighting in the first place. Princess Lyra smiled proudly at Jake. So he has passed all 3 tests? Duke Vexmore looked at Jake for a long moment, then nodded slowly. He has passed them in ways I never expected. Perhaps there is wisdom in bonding with humans after all. Does this mean the blood pact is valid? Jake asked. It means you have proven yourself worthy, Duke Vexmore replied. But the choice to complete the bond is still yours to make. No test can force you to love someone. Jake looked at Princess Lyra's beautiful purple eyes. Over the past few days, he had learned that she was not just beautiful but also kind, intelligent, and genuinely caring about both her people and his. The thought of bonding with her was no longer terrifying. It was actually becoming appealing. If I agree to the bond, Jake said carefully, what exactly would happen? Princess Lyra took his hands in hers. We would share a ceremony that connects our minds and life forces. You would become part Valtharian, and I would become part human. We would be stronger together than either of us could be alone. And we would rule your empire together, Jake asked. We would guide it toward a better future, Princess Lyra corrected. A future where different species work together instead of fighting. A future where strength comes from cooperation, not conquest. Jake looked around at all the faces watching him, human and Valtharian alike. His decision would affect not just his own life, but the lives of billions of people across the galaxy. He thought about the little moon beast still sitting on his shoulder, purring contentedly. He thought about the 1,000-year war that could be ended with cooperation instead of fighting. The bonding ceremony was planned for the next day, but Jake woke up to the sound of explosions in the distance. He rushed to his window and saw flashes of light in the sky above the research center. Ships were fighting in space above Earth. Jake quickly got dressed and ran to the research center. He found Princess Lyra in the main hall looking worried as she spoke into a communication device. What's happening? Jake asked. Duke Vexmore's second-in-command, General Krex, has started a rebellion, Princess Lyra explained. He disagrees with the Duke's decision to accept our bonding. He's brought more ships and is trying to stop the ceremony by force. Through the windows, Jake could see explosions in the sky as Valtharian ships fought each other. Some of Earth's military ships had also joined the battle, trying to protect the planet. How many ships does General Krex have? Jake asked. Too many, Princess Lyra replied sadly. Even with Duke Vexmore's forces helping us, we are outnumbered. General Krex believes that accepting humans as equals will make the Valtharian Empire weak. He wants to conquer Earth instead of forming an alliance. Agent Cooper ran into the hall with a grim expression. We're losing the battle, he announced. General Krex's ships are more advanced than anything we have. Our military estimates we have maybe 6 hours before they break through our defenses. Jake felt a cold fear in his stomach. What happens then? Then General Krex will declare the Blood Pact invalid and probably destroy every major city on Earth as an example to other planets, Princess Lyra said quietly. Jake looked around the room at all the worried faces. There has to be something we can do, some way to stop this. Duke Vexmore, who had been standing silently in the corner, stepped forward. There is one possibility, he said slowly. But it is very dangerous. What is it? Jake asked immediately. If you and Princess Lyra complete the bonding ceremony now before General Krex can stop it, then by Valtharian law he cannot declare it invalid. A completed bond is sacred and cannot be broken by anyone except the bonded pair themselves. But you said the ceremony takes hours, Princess Lyra protested. General Krex will attack long before we can finish. The full ceremony takes hours, Duke Vexmore agreed. But the essential bonding can be done in minutes if both partners are willing to take the risk. What risk? Jake asked. Princess Lyra looked at him with worried purple eyes. A rushed bonding can be dangerous. Instead of slowly connecting our minds, we would have to open ourselves completely to each other all at once. It can be overwhelming. Some people have lost their sanity attempting it. Jake thought about this for a moment. Outside, the sounds of battle were getting louder. Earth's defenders were fighting bravely, but they could not hold out much longer. What exactly would happen during this quick bonding? Jake asked. We would share our complete memories, emotions, and life experiences in a single moment, Princess Lyra explained. You would see everything I have ever thought or felt, and I would see the same from you. There would be no secrets, no barriers between us. Jake realized what she was saying. You would see all my fears and doubts, all the times I've been weak or selfish or scared. And you would see mine, Princess Lyra replied softly. You would know that I have been lonely for most of my very long life. You would feel how desperate I am for someone to truly understand me. You might decide you do not want to be bonded to someone so needy. Jake looked at this beautiful alien princess who had turned his quiet life completely upside down. In just a few days, she had shown him courage, wisdom, and kindness. She had also shown him a universe much bigger and more exciting than he had ever imagined. Princess Lyra, Jake said formally, would you be willing to risk a quick bonding with someone like me? An ordinary human who studies plants and has never done anything particularly brave or important? Princess Lyra smiled, showing her delicate fangs. Jake Morrison, you saved an innocent creature when you could have saved yourself. You solved a 1,000-year-old problem that our greatest minds could not figure out. You protected me using nothing but your intelligence and courage. You are far from ordinary. Another explosion shook the building. Through the windows, Jake could see one of Earth's defense ships falling toward the planet in flames. We're running out of time, Agent Cooper said urgently. Jake took Princess Lyra's hands in his. Then let's do this. How do we begin? Duke Vexmore moved quickly, directing his soldiers to form a protective circle around Jake and Princess Lyra. The ceremony is simple but intense, he explained. You must look into each other's eyes and open your minds completely. Princess Lyra will drink a small amount of your blood while you speak the bonding words. What are the bonding words? Jake asked. Princess Lyra's hands were shaking slightly. We each promise to share our strength, our weakness, our joy, and our sorrow for as long as we both exist. Jake nodded. I'm ready. Princess Lyra looked into his eyes. Even though explosions were happening all around them, Jake found himself focusing completely on her beautiful purple gaze. Are you sure about this, Jake? Once we bond, we will be connected forever. You will feel my emotions and I will feel yours for the rest of our very long lives. Jake thought about his quiet life as a plant scientist. He thought about the small apartment where he lived alone. He thought about how he had never really felt like he belonged, anywhere or with anyone. Then he thought about the past few days with Princess Lyra. He thought about how she listened to his ideas and respected his opinions. He thought about how she wanted to make her empire better, not just more powerful. He thought about how she looked at him like he was someone special instead of just ordinary. I'm sure, Jake said firmly. Let's save our worlds together. Princess Lyra smiled and gently bit her own wrist, drawing a small amount of her silver-colored blood. Then she bit Jake's wrist very carefully with her fangs. Jake felt a tiny pinch, but no pain. As their blood mixed together, Princess Lyra began to speak the bonding words. I promise to share my strength, my weakness, my joy, and my sorrow with Jake Morrison for as long as we both exist. Jake repeated the words, feeling them resonate through his entire body. I promise to share my strength, my weakness, my joy, and my sorrow with Princess Lyra Vexithara for as long as we both exist. Suddenly, Jake's mind exploded with new sensations. He could see Princess Lyra's memories flooding into his consciousness. He saw her as a child, lonely in a vast palace. He felt her sadness when her parents arranged political marriages for her siblings. He experienced her joy when she first learned about humans and their capacity for growth and change. At the same time, Jake could feel Princess Lyra experiencing his memories. She saw his quiet childhood, his love of learning, his dreams of discovering new forms of life. She felt his loneliness, but also his contentment with simple pleasures. The exchange lasted only seconds, but when it ended, Jake felt completely different. He could sense Princess Lyra's emotions as if they were his own. More importantly, he could feel her love for him, real love based on understanding who he truly was. It is done, Duke Vexmore announced. The bond is complete and sacred. At that moment, General Krex's voice boomed from speakers throughout the building. Surrender now, Princess Lyra, or watch this pathetic planet burn. But Princess Lyra was no longer afraid. The bonding had given her access to Jake's human creativity and adaptability. She stood up with new confidence and spoke into her communication device. General Krex, I am now bonded to Jake Morrison by sacred law. Your rebellion is illegal and will be punished by the full power of the Valtherian Empire. A bond with a human is not valid, General Krex's angry voice replied. Then you will explain that to the Imperial Council, Duke Vexmore said, taking the communication device. I am ordering all loyal Valtherian forces to arrest General Krex and his followers for treason against the crown. Jake could feel Princess Lyra's tactical knowledge flowing into his mind, just as she was gaining access to his scientific creativity. Together, they quickly developed a plan. Agent Cooper, Jake said with new confidence. Contact Admiral Kate Sullivan. Tell her to have our ships retreat to the far side of the moon. Retreat? Agent Cooper asked in confusion. Trust me, Jake said, while Princess Lyra simultaneously contacted the loyal Valtherian forces with coordinated instructions. As Earth's ships retreated, General Krex's forces pursued them, thinking they were winning. But Jake and Princess Lyra had set a trap. The loyal Valtherian ships were waiting on the far side of the moon, and they surrounded General Krex's forces in a perfect ambush. The battle was over quickly. General Krex and his rebels were captured, and the threat to Earth was ended. 6 months later, Jake stood on the balcony of the Valtherian Royal Palace, looking out at the purple sky of Valtheria Prime. The little moon beast from the tests had become his constant companion, riding on his shoulder as he learned to navigate his new life as a prince. Princess Lyra joined him on the balcony, now wearing simpler clothes that combined Valtherian elegance with human practicality. The bond between them had grown stronger every day, based not just on magical connection but on genuine love and respect. The council approved our proposal for the new trade agreements, she told him happily. 5 more planets want to join our cooperative alliance instead of being conquered territories. Jake smiled. And Dr. Park sent a message from Earth.